This is a shiur on Tosas Direi Maskel Afal P on Daf Bezam and Bez Meseches Berachos. This is the fourth Tosas down on Daf Bezam and Bez. We're proceeding through Berachos Iyun over here. Now this Tosas is a tiny Tosas, barely says anything, almost looks like it's not important at all. And I want to try to demonstrate in this shiur that in reality Tosas over here is actually saying a lot, and a lot of what Tosas is saying is what causes an entire shittah that Tosas has in bein hashmashos. The entire shittah that Tosas' whole shittah of bein hashmashos, which many of the Rishonim, certainly the Gra of the Rishonim, seem to disagree with. It's a big chiddush. So, in the famous Rabbeinu Tam's shittah in bein hashmashos, that entire shittah is built off what Tosas says, which barely seems to be saying anything over here, but it causes a huge issue, which ends up turning into part of that shittah, not the full shittah, but part of that shittah evolves from there. So first of all, let's just see the Gemara that Tosas is going on. This is Daf Bezam and Bez, or a minute. The Gemara here is asking a question from a brayso. Me'emasai maschilan likros kriya shema ba'arvis misha shebnei adam nichnasen lechol piton ba'arve shabbosos. Brayso says that according to this particular position, Rabbi Meir, the time for saying kriya shema is when people eat their bread on Erev Shabbos. Divrei Rabbi Meir, that's Rabbi Meir's opinion. V'chachomim omer mishosha kohanim zakoin lechol b'trumason. The chachamim say it's from when the kohanim can eat truma, like our Mishnah says. And then the brayso finishes, simin ledover tzeis hakochavim. A simin to know that this is the proper time is tzeis hakochavim. In other words, how do you know when do the kohanim eat truma? It's tzeis hakochavim. V'yafa b'shein raya ledover zecher ledover. And the Gemara says, even though there's no proof to this, there's a hint to it. Shenemar, because it says, "Vanachnu osim b'malacha v'chetzia machzikim b'ramachim me'alos hashachar atzeis hakochavim v'yomer v'hayu lanu halayla mishmar v'hayom malacha." The Gemara goes on to explain basically what's the hint. The pasuk says that they did work from alos hashachar until tzeis. That's from dawn until the stars come out, and then it calls that the daytime. We did work during the day, and we were on guard. Halayla mishmor, we were on guard at night. So the hint in the pasuk is that daytime runs from alos hashachar until tzeis. That implies that nighttime starts at tzeis. So if nighttime starts at tzeis, that's a good proof that b'shach b'cha should also be tzeis hakochavim. The zman kriya shema should be tzeis hakochavim. That's the hint that the chachamim are saying comes from this pasuk. Okay, fine. So Tosas wants to know, why is this not a raya gemura? What do you mean it's a hint? The pasuk says explicitly that the day goes until tzeis hakochavim. So Tosas says, Ava pishein raya ledover, raya gemura eina. It's not a full-fledged raya. The halomayri hasam linyan kriya shema, because the pasuk is just talking about what is considered night. But it's not telling you Kriya Shema, which is, you look at some of the other commentaries, is dependent on B'shach B'cha. It's depending when you go to sleep. Who says you go to sleep exactly when the night starts? So that's why it's a hint. Yeah, this pasuk is a very good proof. According to Tosas, this pasuk is a Raya Gemura that nighttime starts at Tzeis HaKochavim, but it's not a Raya Gemura that Kriya Shema Zman is Tzeis HaKochavim. That's what the Gemara means. Again, tiny Tosas doesn't seem to be saying anything. And we're going to see that I think Tosas is saying a lot. First of all, let's take a look at Rashi. Rashi clearly argues. Rashi says, Shein Raya Ledover, Shahayom Kola B'Tzeis HaKochavim. Even though there's no proof that the day ends with Tzeis, Zecher Ledover Ika, there's a hint. So clearly Rashi is saying this is not a proof that the day ends at Tzeis HaKochavim. It's a hint that the day ends at Tzeis HaKochavim. Rashi says it again on a little bit later. Tashma V'hayu Lanu Halayla Mishmar says, V'Zecher Ledover Ika, it's a hint, because the whole time of the work we're calling day. So that implies that that's day, and that implies that night starts at tzeis. Okay, now, we could ask, what's the big issue here between Rashi and Tosas? Why does Rashi say this is only a hint? Tosas says this is a total proof that night starts at tzeis. I'm not sure there's so much there. But it's something to look, and maybe there is something more there. But it seems like Rashi is saying, look, it's not explicit that the nighttime starts at Tzeis HaKochavim, the day ends. It says they worked the entire day from dawn until Tzeis HaKochavim, and it says that they worked from dawn until Tzeis, and it says the work was done for the whole day. So it's a hint that daytime runs from dawn until Tzeis. And Tosa says it's a raya brura, that the daytime runs from dawn until tseis, and that nighttime starts from tseis. That's a disagreement, but also, again, Tosa is saying, what's the hint? The hint is that Kriya Shema starts from tseis. But it's a raya gemura that nighttime starts from tseis, and the Rashi says, no, the Gemara means what it says. It's a hint that nighttime starts from tseis HaKochav. Okay, so actually, I'm going to come back to these two sources in a moment, but I want to show you in Psachim first here. The Gemara in Psachim says a line, V'ha'kaimalon. Now, I don't have the Gemara here, but the Gemara has a line over there. It says, Kaimalon de'ad seis ha'kochavim yamama. It has a line. We hold that seis ha'kochavim is, that until seis ha'kochavim is daytime. Or that maybe you could say that seis ha'kochavim is the beginning of night. But the phraseology of the Gemara Pesachim is, Ha'kaimalon we hold, it is established that daytime runs until seis ha'kochavim. So if you look over here, it's fascinating because Rashi and Tosafos almost seem to go in opposite directions. I don't think they are, but they almost seem to go in opposite directions here. Rashi says, where do we hold that seis ha'kochavim is laila? Rashi says, V'kaimalon b'shmaita kamaisa de brachos. In the first sugya of brachos, we conclude that seis ha'kochavim is when nighttime starts, or seis ha'kochavim is when daytime ends. And then he says, there's also Rashi in Psachim, Daf Beis Amud Aleph, At seis ha'kochavim yamama k'dichsiv, quotes our very pasuk, me'alos ha'shachar ve'at seis ha'kochavim de'ezra. That's the pasuk from dawn until tseis, pasuk in Ezra that says that seis ha'kochavim is the end of the day and I guess the beginning of the night. Now, what's strange is Rashi's the one that said it's just a hint in brachas, and here that's the kaimalon. Where do we hold that seis ha'kochavim is nighttime, or again that the end of the day is seis ha'kochavim? Where do we find that? We find that in the sugya in brachas, where Rashi himself said in brachas that it's only a hint, but Rashi says it's coming from the sugya in brachas. And Tosafos disagrees. Tosafos says, this is in Psachim, v'kaimalon at seis ha'kochavim yamamu omeri dipshita leil Gemara. The Re says it's obvious to the Gemara because that's what it says in Megillah. It says the me'alos hashachar yomhu. It says from dawn. There, the discussion is when does day start. It says it starts from dawn. Brings the same psukim. V'yomer v'hayu lanu halayla mishmar v'ayom malacha u'mehasam nami mukach that seis hakochavim yomhu. From there, you see that seis hakochavim is daytime. So he says it comes from the Gemara in Megillah. Now, there is a little bit of a difficulty. If you actually look in the Gemara in Megillah, and the Achronim asked this kasha on Tosafos, the only problem is that the Gemara right before says, V'akayim alon de'at seis ha'kochavim. So it says, that's what the Gemara uses, that exact same line as Psachim. So if the source is Megillah, but Tosafos here in Psachim is saying the source is Megillah, the Gemara in Megillah itself said, Ha'kayim alon. So clearly the Gemara in Megillah wasn't getting it from itself. So that's why Rashi's pshat makes a little more sense. If Kaimalon de'at seis ha'kochavim is coming from the sugya in brachas, that would make more sense because the Gemara Megillah also uses the same expression that it says in Psachim, V'kaimalon de'at seis ha'kochavim yamama. It says that in that sugya in Megillah. So it's hard to say that the ultimate source of this all is coming from Megillah. But that we're going to leave that aside. But in any case, Tosafos says the source that seis ha'kochavim is the end of the day and presumably the beginning of the night comes from Megillah. And then Tosafos asks a kasha, which we're going to see in Shabbos again, but I'll read it over here already. Tosafos says, "V'lo kasha me'ahu kra l'tanoi," the parak by Mem Adlikin. You're going to say that there should be a kasha from this. It's a rule, right? There's a rule from Meseches Megillah that seis ha'kochavim is the beginning of the nighttime. That's a big kasha in the Gemara in Shabbos. To come Rabbi Yehuda mishatishka achama kol zman shepanei mizrach madimin v'ikol leman damar hasam shnei chelkei yemil shu lefi anir shal gedol of seis ha'kochavim. Basically, there's a whole discussion there bein hashmashos, and it talks about the fact that already bein hashmashos maybe starts. One position is 2/3 of a meal. Before seis ha'kochavim, it seemed to be. It was really 2/3 of a meal from really when the sun sets. But the point is, bein hashmashos, there was a whole machlokas over there. When is nighttime? How long is bein hashmashos? Is it 3/4 of a meal, 2/3 of a meal? There's a whole machlokas. What are you talking about? Just look at seis ha'kochavim. So he says, "De'enanu b'kiyin b'seis ha'kochavim." Tosafos says, well, we don't really know when Tzeis HaKochavim is. Kedamar Hasam, lo kochavim gedolim hanirin bayom, v'lo kochavim ketanim hanirin b'layla lo beinonim. It's got to be medium-sized stars. We don't know. What Tosafos, we'll see it more in Shabbos. What Tosafos basically says is that the whole machlokas about bein hashmashos, again, there's a machlokas. Rabbi Yehuda says bein hashmashos is a certain amount of time, and then Rabbi Yossi says it's kerafayin. There's a whole machlokas. What is bein hashmashos? It's running from, does it run from sunset to tzeis, etc. Tosafos says that whole machlokas doesn't make any sense. What are they arguing about when the nighttime starts? Just look at Tzeis HaKochavim. Whenever the stars come out, Kaim Olan, we hold from the Gemara and Megillah, everyone agrees Tzeis HaKochavim is nighttime. So what do we need to do? A whole cheshbon of looking at the sky and seeing when it's red and when it's black. The Gemara and the Shabbos, it's a whole cheshbon. How you figure out when it's nighttime, when it's bein hashmashos, suffix, whatever. What do we need it all for? Just look for Tzeis HaKochavim. So Tosafos answers, no, you don't understand. The same confusion that applies in terms of when night is, in terms of the sky being dark or red or whatever, that whole discussion is also a confusion about Tzeis HaKochavim. That is the confusion, because it's hard to know when Tzeis HaKochavim is, because it's got to be medium-sized stars. We don't know exactly when medium-sized stars are, so that is the same discussion. The same way we have a suffix about bein hashmashos, a suffix when is the end of the day and the beginning of the night, there actually is a suffix about Tzeis HaKochavim, when is Tzeis HaKochavim. We know 100% according to Tosafos that Tzeis HaKochavim is the beginning of the night. We just don't know when Tzeis HaKochavim is. That's what Tosafos says over here. So what I want to point out over here is that Tosafos understands that Kaimalon, we hold Tzeis HaKochavim is night, is a universal principle. It comes from this Gemara Megillah. It has nothing to do with any machlokas. It's not like some people hold Tzeis HaKochavim. Kaimalon doesn't mean there's a machlokas about it, and we hold like the shittah that says Tzeis HaKochavim is nighttime. That's not how Tosafos understands. Tosafos understands that Kaimalon Tzeis HaKochavim, everyone agrees that Tzeis HaKochavim is nighttime. There's a machlokas, the whole machlokas about bein hashmashos, when exactly does the night begin? That's a machlokas because we don't know when Tzeis HaKochavim is. But everyone understands that Tzeis HaKochavim is night. That is a general principle. Okay, so I want to show you that Rashi can learn Kaimalon much more pashut. If you back up over here in my source sheet, I put here Rashi and Tosafos on Berachos Daf bein Amud Aleph. I've already, in a couple shiurim, gone back to this Tosafos because it's very important. But first with Rashi, Rashi famously says that if the Zman of Kriyas Shema starts from Tzeis HaKochavim, from the time that the Kohanim eat Shruma, Rashi asks him, Kain, if so, Lama Korno So Beveis HaKnesses. Why do we say Shema in Shul? We daven Ma'ariv much earlier than Tzeis HaKochavim. He's asking in practice, why do we say Shema much earlier? He answers, Kedei Lamud B'Tfilah Mitoch Divrei Torah. You're right. That's not the real Kriyas Shema. We just do that because we want to say some divrei Torah before we daven Shmona Esrei, before we daven Ma'ariv. V'achitanya b'brayso b'brachos Yerushalmi u'lefikach, therefore chova aleinu lekrosa mishatachshach. We have to read again Kriyas Shema when it gets dark outside. Over Kriyas Parsha Rishona she'adam korei al mitaso yatsa. The first parsha you read, meaning when you read the first parsha Kriyas Shema al Mita, you're Yotzei Kriyas Shema. We mentioned many times. Rashi's saying that the Ma'ariv that we daven, that's not davening als Kriyas Shema. That's a dura, maybe the brachos, maybe on a durabanan level, but the real Kriyas Shema, or maybe perhaps even Kriyas Shema on a doraisa level, that's what we do at night. That we do that after Tzeis HaKochavim. That's Kriyas Shema Lamita. Kriyas Shema on a doraisa level you fulfill with Kriyas Shema Lamita, but we daven way too early to fulfill Kriyas Shema. That's what Rashi says. But what do I want from this Rashi? What I want from this Rashi is that Rashi, just what we hold. Rashi seems to say that we hold halacha l'maisa like the Mishnah. We hold that the Zman Kriyas Shema is Tzeis HaKochavim. And we daven Ma'ariv early. It's not a problem because we're not doing Kriyas Shema. You do Kriyas Shema again later with Kriyas Shema Lamita. That's you can fulfill the Doraisa. Why we daven early is, you're right, we're not fulfilling Kriyas Shema. But we hold, like the Mishnah, that Kriyas Shema, the mitzvah of Kriyas Shema in the evening begins at Tzeis HaKochavim. I have my answer. According to Rashi, when the Gemara in Psachim and the Gemara in Megillah also say Kaimalon, that Tzeis HaKochavim, we hold that Tzeis HaKochavim is night, we hold like the Mishnah. There's a bunch of other shittahs about Kriyas Shema and Daf Bezom and Bezom Brachos. We see when the poor people eat their meal, when the regular people eat their meal, when it's Kiddush Hayom, that's bein hashmashos. There's a bunch of shittahs on Daf Bezom and Bez when the Zman Kriyas Shema is. Rashi says ultimately we hold like our Mishnah. ultimately the Zman Kriyas Shema is Tzeis HaKochavim. So therefore, when the Gemara in Pesachim says, Kaim Alon, we hold that Tzeis HaKochavim is, Kaim Alon, that Tzeis HaKochavim is Zman Kriyas Shema, because we hold like that shittah. Of course, there's a whole machlokas tanoim about it. We hold Kriyas Shema, the Zman is Tzeis HaKochavim. According to Rashi, Rashi doesn't need to say what Tosa says. Rashi does not need to say that we don't know when Tzeis is. We know 100% when Tzeis HaKochavim is. And there is, remember, there's a shittah in the Gemara in Shabbos. I'm not going so much into this right now. There's a shittah in the Gemara Shabbos, Rabbi Yossi, that says that bein hashmashos is keref ayin. Basically meaning there's no bein hashmashos. It's the blink of an eye. Little machlokas, exactly what it means is there really a time period that's the blink of an eye, that's a suffix, or does he mean to say there's no suffix at all? But that's not relevant right now. The point is, there is a shittah Rabbi Yossi which says there is no bein hashmashos. Tzeis HaKochavim, according to Rabbi Yossi, is nighttime, and there's no bein hashmashos. There's no time period that's a suffix. That is what we hold. That is what Rashi is saying in this Gemara in Berachos. The Gemara in Berachos, according to the Mishnah, which says that the Zman Kriyas Shema is Tzeis HaKochavim, and there's a hint to this in Ezra Nehemiah. That hint is that the nighttime starts with Tzeis HaKochavim. Not everyone agrees with that. Not everyone says that the nighttime starts with Tzeis HaKochavim. There's a shittah Reb Yehuda who says that there's a whole time period called bein hashmashos, starts when the color of the sky is a certain color. Again, you can see that in Shabbos. We'll see a little of that now, but that's a sugya in Shabbos. That doesn't agree. The sugya that says that there's a whole time period called bein hashmashos doesn't agree that Tzeis HaKochavim is nighttime. Kaimulon, we hold Tzeis HaKochavim. Not every shittah holds that. There's a bunch of shittahs on Daf Bezim and Bezim Berachos that might not agree that Tzeis HaKochavim is the beginning of the night. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they're talking about B'shach B'cha. Okay, fine. That's something to go into in each shittah. But the point is, Rashi learns a kipshuto. Kaim Alon, we hold like the Mishnah in Berachos. The Gemara in Megillah also, which says Kaim Alon, Tzeis HaKochavim, Ad Tzeis HaKochavim Yamama, is also following the Sugya in Berachos. That's the whole shverkeit with Tosafos, because Tosafos is saying that the source is Megillah, even though in Megillah it also says Hakaim Alon, as if we learned that from some other source. But that's what Tosafos is forced to do. Tosafos is also forced. Tosafos says that it's a principle across the board. Everybody agrees Tzeis HaKochavim is nighttime. There's a shashayla when Tzeis HaKochavim is. Rashi doesn't need any of that. You take a look at Tosafos, you see what gets him in trouble. Tosafos on Daf Bezam and Aleph and Berachos says Al Keino Meri. Remember, Tosafos had the same kasha. Why is it that we daven early if the Zman for Shema is Tzeis HaKochavim? Well, we daven so much earlier. Rabbeinu Tam said we hold like Rabbi Yehuda that really we don't hold like our Mishnah. We hold Plaga Mincha. The Ri said a little different. I'll quote the Ri here. Al Keino Meri Devadai Kriya Shema Shel Beis HaKnesses Iker. Kriya Shema we do in davening is the Iker. V'yanu shemispal in Arvis mibod yom Svirol and Kani tonight the Gemara. We hold like the other Tanoim on Daf Bezim and Beis. Damri Mishosh Kidesh Hayom. There's one Tana that says that Zman Kriya Shema is from the time of bein hashmashos Kidesh Hayom. That's how Rashi understands Kidesh Hayom. That the time that we bring in Shabbos. We bring in Shabbos right before bein hashmashos. V'gam Mishosh Bnei Adam Nichnasim Lohasev, or the time that people eat. The Hainu Sudas Erev Shabbos. That's the Sud of Shabbos. That's also earlier than Tzeis HaKochavim. It's while it's still day. Umeosa Shahav is Zman Tefillah. From that point in time is the Zman Tefillah. So according to Tosafos, we don't hold. Here's the key: we don't hold like the Mishnah in Berachos, our Mishnah that says that Zman Kriyas Shema is Tzeis HaKochavim. We don't hold like that. So if we don't hold like that, what in the world does it mean when it says Kaim Alon? We hold that until Tzeis HaKochavim is daytime. We don't hold like the Mishnah Berachos. So Tosafos has to say, no. It's a principle. Everyone agrees that Tzeis HaKochavim is the beginning of the night. That's a principle. No one argues with that. The issue is, when is Tzeis HaKochavim? Okay, so there's an issue when it says HaKochavim. Some say bein hashmashos is a long period. We don't know exactly when it is. Some say they do know when it is. There's Tanoim on the other side of the page who say B'shach B'cha could be earlier. That's all very well and good, but everyone agrees Tzeis Kaim Alon does not mean we hold like our Mishnah in Berachos. Kaim Alon means everyone agrees Tzeis HaKochavim, at least in principle, is the beginning of the night, because we don't hold like the first Mishnah in Berachos. We hold like these other shittahs of Shosh Kidesh Hayom, Shosh Bnei Adam Nichnasim L'Hasif. My point here is, is that Tosafos gets in trouble because it says Kaimalon that Tzeis HaKochavim is the nighttime, but we don't hold like the first Mishnah in Berachos according to Tosafos, and that's why he's forced to say that Kaimalon is not coming from Berachos, Kaimalon is coming from Megillah, even though it gets him into a little trouble in Megillah, but Kaimalon comes from the Sugya in Megillah, and it's a principle across the board, and that's also why Tosafos is forced to say it's not a hint. See, it's counterintuitive. According to Tosafos, it's got to be a Raya Gemura that Tzeis HaKochavim, because it's a principle that everybody holds of, every Tana. Rashi doesn't have to say that. Rashi could say it's a hint. The pasuk is just a hint that Tzeis HaKochavim is night. Happens to be Kaimalon. We hold like that shittah. We hold like that Tana. Very nice. It's a hint, but we happen to paskin that way. So that's how Rashi learns. If you take a look now, just to see Tosafos in Shabbos, says it a little more in depth. Tosafos in Shabbos says, Trei til seimil. This is the famous Tosafos with the shittah of Rabbeinu Tam that everyone has about 72 minutes is the end of Shabbos. So he says, Kasha da'acha mashma de mishkias hachamar alayla leka letzalosa rivei mil. He says, if you learn this sugya, it sounds like from sunset until night is 3/4 of a meal. Rabbi Yehuda Guve b'psachim perak misha yatami, but Rabbi Yehuda himself, who is this shittah here, savar de mishkias hachamar tzeis hakochavim arba milin. He says it's 4 mil from sunset until tzeis. So it's 4 mil is way long. Again, this is where Rabbeinu Tam comes up with a way. So is it 2/3 of a mil, which is a very short amount of time? It's going to be less than 20 minutes probably. Or is it 4 mil, which is again going to be somewhere around your 72-minute zone? But Tzeis HaKochavim, Lailu, Tzeis HaKochavim is night. Here's where Tosafos says it. Kedamrinon Beresh Perakama Dipsachim, like it says, Kaimola and Tzeis HaKochavim is night. Uchidamukach Krav Anachnu Osim B'Malacha. So that's where you see this, because Tosafos already is using this Gemara in Psachim and saying, one second, it says from sunset to Tzeis is 4 mil. And we know that Tzeis HaKochavim across the board is nighttime. But it also says that from Shkia until night, which is Tzeis, according to Tosafos, is 3/4 of a meal. So what's going on over here? Devinei mapik v'perak beis de Megillah, quoting Megillah, the me'alos hashachar yamamuhu. So Tosafos, because of this conundrum, v'omer Rabbeinu Tam, so Rabbeinu Tam says, the hasamayri betchilas shkia. There's 2 different shkias. When it says it's 4 mil from shkia till tzeis, so that's talking about the beginning of shkia. V'hacha, but over here where it says it's 2/3 or 3/4 of a meal from shkia until night, which is tzeis. So here, mishatishka misof shkia. It's the end of shkia. The sun's already entered the thickness of the rakia. So the entire sheet of Rabbeinu Tam comes from the fact that Laila is tzeis across the board. Because everybody has to agree that tzeis is Laila, you've got a contradiction in Gemaras. And once you have a contradiction in Gemaras, how do we answer it? There's 2 shkias. That's why Rabbeinu Tam comes up with this whole thing, that there's 2 shkias. So, and that's why we wait so long after Shabbos, according to Rabbeinu Tam, because we hold from sunset until night, tzeis is 4 mil. So it ends up, we have to wait this long period of time. According to Rashi, you wouldn't even have a contradiction. There's no contradiction at all. Because according to Rashi, the Gemara in Psachim says from Shkia until Tzeis is 4 mil. And that's all well and good. But who in the world says that Tzeis is necessarily... We don't know that Tzeis is nighttime. There's a shittah, Kaimalon. Yeah, Rabbi Yossi, who holds that bein hashmashos is Iyun, maybe he holds that Tzeis is nighttime. But here we're talking about nighttime. So here where it says it's 3/4 of a meal from Shkia until night, that doesn't have to be Tzeis. It's 3/4 of a meal from Shkia. We can say it's a regular Shkia from Shkia until night, according to Rabbi Yehuda. 3/4 of a meal from Shkia. 3/4 of a meal from Shkia is nighttime. It's not tzeis. It's nighttime. There's another shittah that says tzeis. It doesn't have to be a contradiction at all. Bichlal, you don't necessarily have the contradiction. Okay, you have to know exactly what Rashi says and how he figures everything out. There are numerous sugyas, but the point is you don't need to come on to Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam only gets into trouble because of the kaimalon that everybody agrees tzeis is Laila. If you're going to say that everyone agrees tzeis is Laila, you got a problem over here, a contradiction in sugyas, and you have to come up with 2 shkiyas. If you hold that tzeis is not Laila, there's no contradiction. Shkiyas achama until tzeis is 4 mil, and then you have a different issue. When Laila is, that could be possibly from 3/4 of a meal from wherever Rashi is going to measure in theory. But then he says like this, Avol Teimalari. He asks the same kashem psachim, but the Ri asks to v'mai pligi. What's the issue over here? Look at the Rashti. If everyone agrees tzeis is nighttime, what do we have to have any doubts for? Why do we have a period of bein hashmashos at all? Just wait for tzeis. Gives the same answer as psachim. It's medium-sized stars. Rabbi Yehuda is not sure all the stars that come out from Shkia until the second Shkia, according to Rabbeinu Tam, but from Shkia until the darkening of the upper part of the sky, he doesn't know him bein onim im lav. Are those medium-sized or not? That's the suffix. So in other words, Rabbi Yehuda's bein hashmashos is exactly that suffix. When is tzeis? Again, according to Rashi, everyone can agree when tzeis is. Tzeis is not hard to determine, but not everyone agrees. Tzeis is nighttime. That's all Rashi has to say. Then Tosafos just asks, I don't understand what the issue is anyway. Why don't we just see how long it takes for a guy to walk 4 mil from Shkia, and then we'll know when nighttime is. Again, Rashi's not even going to be bothered by this either, because that just tells us when tzeis is. But tzeis is not necessarily nighttime according to all shittahs, according to Rashi. But anyways, Tosafos answers, Yesh lomar the mesafkelu ma'u adam beinoni. No, there's a suffix. What's an adam beinoni? Tosafos has to come up with all these fakes. Rashi doesn't need any of this. That's basically the point over here. So what are we really saying? This little tiny Tosafos which says afal pishein raya ledavar, that it's not a raya gemura because it's not talking about Kriya Shema. It sounds like Tosafos is saying nothing. Tosafos is saying a lot. What Tosafos has to make it. It's not that Tosafos thinks it's a raya gemura because it sounds like such a great raya. See, that's the whole thing. When you're learning this whole sugi, you're saying, what's going on over here? Rashi thinks it's a hint, and Tosafos thinks it's a raya gemura. What kind of machlokas is that? Why does Rashi think it's a hint, and Tosafos thinks it's not a hint? It's a full-fledged. Tosafos doesn't think it's a raya gemura because it's such a great raya. Wow, what a raya. Tosafos has to say it's a raya gemura because of the Gemara Psachim. He doesn't tell you that here, but Tosafos is forced into this position because there's a Gemara which says kaim alon, and Tosafos holds we don't hold like the shittah of tzeis hakochavim in brachas. So kaim alon needs to be some principle that everyone agrees to. So it has to be a raya gemura, otherwise you don't have a kaim alon. So he has to say that. So he says raya gemura ena. Why does the Gemara in brachas not say it's not a raya gemura? Oh no, it is a raya gemura. It's not a raya gemura to b'shach b'cha. It's not a raya gemura to kriya shema, but it is a raya gemura that tzeis hakochavim is laila. Tosafos is forced into that. And that can explain exactly what's going on between Rashi and Tosafos here. It's not that Tosafos sees this as a raya gemura and Rashi sees it as a hint because of something in the pasuk. Tosafos has to say it's a raya gemura. Rashi is not forced to do it, so he interprets the Gemara Kapshuto that is just a zeicher l'davar. So there's a lot really buried in this Tosafos afal pi, and we'll continue with another Shiur Iyun and Mirza Hashem in the future.